All right, and we are recording. Everybody, again, thank you so much for joining me for today's Gilman information session. My name is Amanda Williamson. I'm the scholarship coordinator, and I'm going to be sharing a presentation with some information on the Gilman scholarship, and then we will have a fun little question and answer portion. There's also going to be a little bit of a brainstorming activity, so maybe have like a pen and pencil ready, or if you have, if you're on your, I shouldn't say if you're on your computer, obviously you're on your computer, have a Word document or something like that pulled up. I'm sorry, it's the end of the day, guys. Do be prepared to be able to take some notes and be prepared for a little bit of a brainstorming. So let's go ahead and get started. I am going to share my screen. What I will say is, in spite of how long we've been doing this fun Zoom world, I still have not figured out how to view my chats when I'm sharing my screen. So please do feel free to put questions into the chat as I go along. I don't want you to forget about those questions. It happens to me all the time where we reach the end of a session and I'll say, do you have any questions? And the students will say, I did, but I forgot about it. Don't forget about it, throw it into the chat, and I'll make sure that I address it at the end. So do feel free to put any questions in the chat, but just be aware of the fact that I will not be answering them in real time. I will be waiting until the end of the session, but I promise we'll get to you. We'll make sure that you have all the information that you want before getting out of here today. So let me go ahead and get my slideshow up and going. And of course, everything wants to be frozen with me today, so I apologize for any delays, which of course I'm already going to get. Come on, computer. All right, here we go. So I'm going to share my screen. It looks like it's taken a second, so bear with me. Come on, little spinny hand. Come on, little spinny hand. All right, can you guys see my screen? Okay, you see where it says Benjamin A. Gilman Scholarship? All right, perfect. Thank you for nodding your head. You're the only one who I can see right now. So thank you for giving me that. So let's go ahead and talk about this scholarship and kind of where it came from and then how you can get it. So this particular scholarship is the Benjamin A. Gilman Scholarship. And it's not letting me go to the next slide. Here we go. So this scholarship is primarily funded by the Department of State. And the main goal for the scholarship is to promote mutual understanding between the people of the United States and the people of other countries, and to do so by facilitating opportunities of academic, professional, athletic, and other cultural exchange. So this would be the academic exchange. So this particular scholarship is only available to students who receive the Pell Grant. Now, the Pell Grant indicates that you come from a low-income background. I myself was a Pell Grant student when I was a student here at NAU, and this scholarship exists to ensure that people who come from low-income backgrounds are not prevented from studying abroad. So that's why this scholarship exists, is to be able to help make sure that study abroad is an equitable opportunity for all students. These are just some stats from our 2020-2021 students. 58% of students in 2020-2021 were first gen, 69 represented racial or ethnic minorities. And that's just in the last year alone. Since its inception, which I believe was 2010, 34,000 undergrads have been awarded. They've received money to go to over 150 countries, and there's over 1,300 U.S. institutions represented. Again, NAU is among them, and NAU is consistently recognized as a university that has a lot of Gilman scholars, basically, that has a lot of students that receive Gilman, which is awesome. We love us, the Gilman. So the scholarship is up to $5,000. They do fall, spring, summer, winter, and academic year. For those of you who are going for the academic year, be aware of the fact that you can apply right now for the fall semester. The deadline for that is going to be the first Tuesday in March, which happens to be March 1st. If you do not receive the award for that time frame, you can apply again. You can apply for your spring semester. Now, you can only receive the award once. If you apply the first time, receive it the first time, then that's it, done. But if you apply the first time, you don't receive it, then you can apply again and potentially receive it for your second semester of study abroad. Or if you are planning on doing a summer right now and then a semester later on, or 2 semesters in 2 locations, whatever the case may be, you can apply more than once as long as you do not win it more than once. First time that you win it, then you are done. But again, a $5,000 award is going to go very, very far in a study abroad program. So let's talk about being eligible. You have to be a Pell Grant recipient. We talked about that. You have to be a U.S. citizen. You have to be an undergrad. You have to be going on a credit-bearing program. If any of you are going on internships that are not credit-bearing, you will not qualify for this scholarship. As long as you are receiving some type of academic credit, as long as you're paying tuition and taking classes, then this will apply to you. This fifth point, where it says in a country or area with an overall travel advisory level 1 or 2, I'm going to put a little bit of an asterisk on that, because about 2 hours ago, Gilman sent out an email that had an update to that policy that I unfortunately did not have time to see because I was in student appointments all day. So I am hoping to get some of that information updated and to have a little bit more of an update on that tomorrow, but I will circle back to that. And there is no minimum length requirement. It used to be if you were doing a summer program that you had to be abroad for at least 21 days in one country in order to qualify for the Gilman. They have gone away with that, which is awesome, because a lot of our summer programs are less than 21 days. So you do still have the opportunity to apply for this scholarship, which is awesome. I'm going to skip this because, again, I'm not entirely sure about it, because, again, I apologize that I'm a little bit clueless on the level 3 or 4, but it's literally, the email was sent at like 2:30, and I apologize. I just haven't had the time to review it yet, but I will have more information soon, I promise. So getting to the application, two-part application. Well, not two-part application, it's called parts of the application, part 1 is you need to fill out the application, which is going to be mostly essay based, which we'll talk about in a second. Going to give them some general information about your program. You're going to fill out those essays. You're going to give them a copy of your unofficial transcript, which you can receive in your Louis account. The unofficial transcript is free. The official transcript you do have to pay for, so make sure you are selecting an unofficial option. And then the last part is you have to say who your education abroad advisor is and who your financial aid advisor is. Now, when you're going through and listing your study abroad advisor, everybody who works in this building is listed in there as an advisor. So just pick whoever it is that you are working with. Jasmine, of course, you are working with me. Some of you may be working with Melanie or with Angelina or with Holly, whatever. Go ahead and select your EA advisor. For the financial aid advisor, there is only one option. Her name is Esther. She is the assistant director of financial aid, and she's the person who approves on the financial aid side of things. So the reason they have these certifications is they have the study abroad advisor certified to ensure that everything that you're saying about the program you're going on, about the program cost, about how long you're going to be there, they want to have us verify that all that stuff is correct. And then the financial aid advisor, they have it verify whether or not you are actually a Pell Grant recipient, which is nice. So one thing that I will say as well about the study abroad advisor and the financial aid advisor certifications, the deadline for students studying abroad for summer or fall is March 1st. We have until March 8th to go in and certify those applications. Now, I will typically get that done on the 2nd. I am actually leaving town on the 3rd, and I won't be back until the 8th, so I will have to get it done on the 2nd. The EA advisors will typically go in the next day and get everything certified. The financial aid advisor, not saying anything against her because she's a wonderful, wonderful lady, she will wait until the absolute last minute to go in and submit Gilman approvals. So I will frequently get students email me say, hey, I've submitted this and the financial aid advisor hasn't approved it yet. She will, I promise. I've been working with her for 6 years. She has never missed a certification, but she just tends to make it one of the last things that she does. So if you don't see it for a while, don't freak out. I promise she's going to do it because she's amazing. So the first essay is your statement of purpose. The statement of purpose is a very general phrasing for an essay that a lot of various things require. That, you know, you had to write a statement of purpose essay to get into college, and you may have to write a statement of purpose to get a job one day, also known as a cover letter, things like that. It's basically a personal interview. It's you getting, you going out there and saying, hey, this is who I am. These are my goals. And in terms of meeting challenges, these are things I've had to overcome in order to meet those goals. Study abroad essays are big when it comes to goals. You're going to be tying every single piece of what you're talking about back to personal, professional, academic goals. Those are the big three. So make sure that you really do plan in advance what your goals are and how they relate to study abroad, because the question tends to be very direct of, what are your personal, professional, academic goals, and how will your particular study abroad program help you to meet those goals? So you need to have very specific answers as to, for example, why you chose the program you chose. Why did you choose this university? Why did you choose this country? Why did you choose the classes that you're planning on taking over there? Why are you studying abroad in the first place? How does this fit into your goals? Spend some time really thinking about why you're choosing to study abroad. Other than the fact that it sounds amazing, one thing that we see a lot in these essays is I want to study abroad to expand my cultural horizons. And I want to study abroad because I love learning about other cultures and I want to, go visit new places and meet new people and eat new food. Those are very generic statements when it comes to study abroad. I've been doing scholarship review now for, again, about 6 years, and I've seen hundreds of scholarship applications that say that exact thing. Everybody wants to go abroad because it's awesome. Everybody in the world wants to do that. I want to know specifically why you, living in Flagstaff, Arizona, at this day, at this time, with your major, why are you choosing to do it? So spend some time thinking about those goals. And even if it's something that you haven't really looked at too deeply before, spend some time thinking about why you chose your particular program. 10 years ago, when I was getting ready to study abroad, I could give you 3 very sort of shallow reasons why I chose the university that I chose. And now looking back on it, having the experience that I've had both in this job and both just from the growth that I had with my international experience, looking back on it, I can really say like, oh, that's why I did that. That's interesting. So really spend some time thinking about your motives here, because it's all going to come back to goals. And you're going to see this a lot. For those of you who came to my first scholarship info session last week, you're going to see this a lot with a bunch of study abroad scholarships. A big question that they're going to have is goals. So it's worth your time to spend 20 minutes doing a brainstorm, writing down some notes to think about how all that stuff ties together. And I know I'm going to sound like a broken record when I say goals, 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 but it is what it is. So bear with me. So 5 questions to ask yourself. Again, do you make a connection between your program and your goals? Do you make a connection between your country and your goals? How will you be academically successful? Again, show that you put some thought into the academics of the program. You're not just going abroad. You are, there is a study abroad that you're doing. So, spend some time talking about that study. Make sure that you give examples and make sure you do talk about challenges. One thing that the Gilman does like to see is they like to send underrepresented students abroad. They like to send students who are either not as commonly involved within study abroad, such as students of color, LGBTQ students, first generation college students. And they also want to see examples of how you may have overcome adversity to get to where you are and how you will continue to do so in your study abroad experience. So if you faced any challenges when it comes to study abroad, whether it's financial, whether it has been something like selecting a program, whether it has been your family doesn't want you to go. My mom was pretty for it when I wanted to study abroad. My dad was a little bit of, my stepmom especially, but my dad and my stepmom were a little bit of a fight. So talk about what those challenges are and how you're working to overcome them. How are you working to achieve this thing that's going to help you achieve your goals? And then do discuss how study abroad will impact your future. Again, personal, professional, academic goals. Again, I'm going to sound like a broken record here. Just bear with me. Second essay, we also get a lot of generalized statements for is community impact. And this is how you're going to work to build mutual understanding and have what we call cross-cultural competencies in the time that you are abroad and how you will then bring that back. So what does it mean to be a United States citizen while you're abroad? Some of you who may not have been abroad yet, you may still be kind of trying to figure that out, and that's okay. It's okay to say, I've never been abroad. I'm going to have to figure out what my identity as an American means abroad. It's okay to say that. It's okay to say, I don't know. But show that you put some thought into it. Research how Americans are perceived in your host country. It's very different around the world in terms of how Americans, how tourists, how travelers, how people of a particular race or ethnicity or visual representation. It's going to depend how those people are received. So spend some time thinking about that and doing some research on that. This is a big area where we see the generic is how you will seek opportunities to be culturally engaged and seeking opportunities to have meaningful interactions. Now, the big things that we see here when we're reading these essays is students will say, I'll talk to locals and I'll go to the local sites and, historical sites and things like that. And I'll eat the local food, and they'll say that'll, that will immerse me in the local culture. You're automatically going to be doing that stuff just by the very nature of being abroad. Whether you want to be talking to locals or not, you're going to be talking to locals. You're going to be eating local food. You're already going to be doing these things. That's just a standard of when it comes to not just study abroad, but to traveling. So spend some time, again, going back to goals. Why are you choosing to study abroad culturally? What are you looking to get out of it? And what are you going to do that's going to allow you to have a meaningful interaction with the community that you're going to find yourself in? For example, I worked with a student who was applying for the scholarship who was looking to do an education program in it was either Japan or South Korea, but he was a CMF major, and he was saying that he was going to be teaching little kids. And he was saying, I'm going to create an American Disney movie club, and create a little a kids movie club where the kids can come and watch American movies, and I can show them some of my favorites from when I was a kid, and we can sort of have some cross-cultural stuff there. That's kind of a cool, unique way to about cross-cultural interactions and to think about the different ways that you can interact with people of these different communities. So get creative in thinking about how you are going to not only soak up your host culture, but also to share American culture. Again, going back to that first slide that I showed, the purpose of this is to break down barriers between cultures and to allow for more cross-cultural communication and cross-cultural competency. So not only are you going to be learning about them, but they're going to be learning about you. And the same way that you may have assumptions about the culture that you're going into, they have assumptions about Americans. I hear all the time from my students, and I experience it myself when I travel, because pre-COVID, I travel very frequently. People assume that Americans all look a certain way. For example, they assume that all Americans are obese, and that all the ladies wear a whole bunch of makeup and dye their hair, and that it's all artificial, quote unquote. And they assume that Americans are loud and rude, and that everybody has guns. They have assumptions about us as a culture. Whether or not those things are true for the average person, doesn't really matter. Those are the assumptions that they have. So what are you going to do to either prove those assumptions correct or prove them incorrect? How are you going to share American culture in addition to soaking up the local culture? So whether you're going on a semester program or a summer program, look at the program itself and look at the opportunities the program inherently has to allow you to have those opportunities of cross-cultural interactions, and really, spend some time thinking about, what am I going to do other than just be a tourist? When I'm in Paris, what am I going to do other than go to the Eiffel Tower and eat eat a baguette on the lawn? Think about the depth of why you're doing what you're doing. Again, circling it all back to them goals. See how I do that? So questions to ask yourself: do you articulate how you will represent the US? Do you articulate how you will contribute to the goal of building mutual understanding? Again, we're building those bridges. Do you discuss how you will look for opportunities to build meaningful relationships and become more culturally engaged? Now, again, we're looking for meaningful relationships. We're not just looking for, oh, I had a 10-minute conversation with this guy on the train. Those 10-minute conversations on the train can be they can be very, very eye-opening opportunities for cross-cultural interaction. I remember I was in a cab in Japan, and I had one of the most enlightening experiences of my life in the 15 minutes that I was in this cab with this Japanese cab driver. So, think about what meaning you're going to put into those moments and to derive from those moments. And this is the big one. This is the follow-on service project. Now, this is a pretty common thing when it comes to scholarships, is the idea that I will give you money, and in return, you do something for me when you get back. We have a couple of study abroad scholarships that have that structure. So the Gilman does have the follow-on service project. So the idea behind the service project is that once you come back, then you will inspire others to study abroad, share the word about the Gilman, share the word about study abroad, and kind of, market the whole idea of internationalization, basically. So the big things that they're looking for here are creativity, and I cannot emphasize this enough. I've read a lot of drafts of the Gilman, and I've seen a lot of the same proposals. And we're looking for creativity here. So I am going to stop sharing my screen really quickly just because none of what I'm going to say is going to be on these slides. Okay, so for the follow-on service project, the idea is you go and study, whether it's for a summer, semester, full year, whatever. You come back and then they give you a time frame under which you have to have your service project completed. It's usually 6 months after you come back. What they're looking for here is some method that you will use to spread the word about your experience and to spread the word about study abroad that is creative, that is outside of the norm, that is original. What they're looking for is stuff that is not already being done to market study abroad. For example, a lot of the things that I see when I'm reading first drafts of the follow-on service project essay is students will say stuff like, I'm going to table at at a campus event, or I'm going to visit some classrooms and talk to people about study abroad, or I'm going to host an information session to talk about study abroad. We already do that stuff. That's already just an integral part of my job. They're looking for something new and something interesting and something out there. A couple of examples that I have there. I have one student who wasn't able to go due to COVID, unfortunately, but he was a CMF major, and he had a weekly show here on whatever the TV show is called, NAU TV, or whatever the Lumberjack TV station is. He had a weekly show on there, and he said that he would dedicate 15 minutes of that show. It was an hour-long show a week. He said, I'm going to donate 15 minutes of that a week to talking about a different theme of study abroad every week. So 1 week I'll talk about classes, 1 week I'll talk about cost, 1 week I'll talk about the application process. And that was a unique way to market to his particular community of film people. That was pretty original. That was pretty cool. I had one student who was able to go, thankfully, who received the Gilman. She works with Big Brothers Big Sisters of Flagstaff, which is a local organization that pairs adults with at-risk youth as kind of a mentoring program. And she said, I'm going to come back and give a presentation to my little brothers and little sisters to tell them, A, why it's important to go to college, and B, why it's important to study abroad. That's a very unique population to try to market something like this to. So that was pretty cool. I'm sorry, guys, I got something in my throat today. I had one student who identified as a Latinx student who said, once I come back, I'm going to work with the NAU Study Abroad office to create resources specifically available to Latino, Latina, Latinx students who study abroad. And we now actually have a pretty advanced page on our website for our Latinx students who decide to study abroad. So very, again, unique way to reach a unique population of underrepresented students in study abroad. So get creative. Think about your community. And I don't just mean the NAU community. I mean your specific community. Who is in your community that you think you could go ahead and market this information to? And what strengths and what skills do you currently have that you can utilize that will allow you to create a really effective opportunity to teach people about this? Now, the big things that I want to emphasize with this project is it has to be realistic in terms of the scope of who you're trying to reach and what you're trying to accomplish. So do make sure that it is feasible in that. And also, I want you to dream big. I want you to have a lot of great, fancy, fantastic ideas. But again, we need to be realistic when it comes to cost. I had one student in one of her drafts, she was saying, well, when I go home for the holidays, I will still typically volunteer with my elementary school. So I'll host an international fair at my elementary school, and I'll have different booths, and we'll have food from different countries, and we'll have games. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that sounds great. Who's going to pay for that? And her face just kind of fell, and she's like, wait, what? I'm like, who's the expectation is that you are creating this programming. So are you going to pay people to be there and staff these tents? Are you going to pay for this food? Are you going to pay for all these various things? And she's kind of like, oh, I guess I didn't really think about that. And that's okay. That's part of why we work together through this process. But make sure that it is something that you can actually accomplish yourself. We will assist as much as possible. If it's a matter of, if you want to rent out space in our office or at the International Pavilion or something like that, we're happy to do that. We're happy to have staff present if you need some kind of assistance there. But in terms of, things like cost and logistics, that's all on you. So you have to make sure that it is realistic. So shoot for the stars, but be realistic is the big thing I want to emphasize. Back to the screen share. Okay, can you guys see this? Cool. Dayton, it was your thumb I saw that time. So, I'm sorry, David Dayton. Your thumb I saw that time. So thank you. So 5 questions. Does your service project increase awareness of the Gilman and of study abroad? Is your project feasible? Hey, look at that. Amanda knows what she's talking about. Do you give a detailed plan for your project? Be specific. 3,000 characters is about a page and a half. So you have quite a bit of time to do, to really plan this out. Do you incorporate your study abroad experience into this? I have one student who's going abroad and she's a music major. And I forget exactly what the project was, but it was something that was going to incorporate musical, cross-cultural music. And it was going to be specifically for the music department here on campus. And of course, I'm kicking myself that I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was her own personal experience. And then who is your audience? Who is it that you're trying to reach? Is it Big Brothers, Big Sisters? Is it the Latinx community? Is it the people who watch the NAU TV? And who will you collaborate with to reach this community? Whether it's a professor that you work with, whether it is somebody in a study abroad office, whether it's one of your clubs, whatever the case may be there, you don't have to do this all by yourself, what I'm trying to, point out here is you do have people who will be willing to assist you. But again, you have to be realistic. There's only so much that I'm able to dedicate to these follow-up service projects because I do have a full-time job in and of itself. So just be aware of that stuff. Selection criteria. What are they selecting you on? The impact of program and destination on your academic and career trajectory. So again, how does your program fit into your goal? I know I'm being a broken record. I'm going to keep doing that. Community impact abroad and upon students return home. So that's that building mutual understanding in the second essay. And that, of course, is the follow-up project in the third essay. Academic preparedness. They do look at your GPA and they do ask you to verify that the program that you're selecting is a good fit for your major. And then also diversity of background and experience. One big area as well that the Gilman is looking to promote, as you may have kind of seen in the first couple of slides, is diversity of student populations. They are looking to send what we call underrepresented students abroad. That would be students of color, LGBTQ students, first generation college students, students with disabilities, veterans. There's a bunch of other things that fall into that category. To speak very generally, study abroad is overwhelmingly female, it's overwhelmingly middle class, it's overwhelmingly white, it's overwhelmingly cisgender, and it's overwhelmingly heterosexual. So we are looking to go ahead and break down some of those barriers and to ensure that all students get to study abroad. So if you identify as a student of color, an LGBTQ student, a first generation college student, I want you to emphasize that. I want you to say explicitly somewhere in one of those essays, I identify as blank. We're not legally allowed to ask you for information like that for this type of scholarship. But if you volunteer it, then it means you're just going to be more likely to get additional points. There are a lot of scholarships that exist like this, where even if you're not specifically asked if you identify as an underrepresented student population, we still have extra points that we're able to offer to you if you explicitly state it. So if you identify with any of those things that I've listed or anything else that I didn't list, because we all know everybody has a million different aspects of your identity. You're never just one thing, you're always a million things all at once. Emphasize those things and include those because they are looking to send underrepresented students. Now, that's not to say that if you don't fall into an underrepresented student category, that's not to say that you're not going to get this scholarship. But if you happen to have, that aspect of your identity and you're willing to share it, I very highly encourage you to. Very, very highly encourage. So deadlines and timelines. The March 22 deadline, again, is going to be March 1st. It is always the first Tuesday in March for summer and fall, and the first Tuesday in October for spring break and spring semester. So the application is open. It does close March 1st at 11:59 Pacific time. I've lived in Arizona my entire life, other than the time that I was abroad, so I pay no attention to time zones because we don't have to deal with daylight savings. I think right now we're on Mountain Time. I don't think we're in Pacific Time right now. Don't quote me on that. But make sure that you are keeping the time zone in mind, because if you submit it on the wrong time within the wrong time zone and you don't get it in time, they will not accept any late submission for any reason whatsoever. They're very, very strict. They will not accept late applications. The one time in the 6 years that I've been working with them that I've seen them accept late applications is right around this time last year when Texas was getting real nasty and they had widespread power outages throughout the state. People obviously could not submit their online application if they had no power. My brother and sister are in Texas, and they thankfully had power, but it was real rough for a while. That's the only time that I've ever seen them offer any kind of an extension, and that took a national emergency. So take that to mean they will not accept any late submissions. So do make sure that you are keeping the time in mind when you are looking to submit this application. Again, look at the time zone. Some tips and tricks. I've got some that Gilman recommends and also some that I recommend. Gilman recommends, and these are all quotes that have come from Gilman winners. So these are Gilman winners who are giving you this advice. So, you know, obviously they did something right if they won the scholarship. Create a compelling story that ties your past, present, and future to highlight the impact the scholarship will have on you. Again, guess what word I'm going to say here? Goals. It's all about them goals. Start early, be your truest self, and have confidence that you are worthy. The whole point of a scholarship essay is you're convincing them why you deserve the money. You're convincing them why between John and Jane over here, here's why John deserves the money. So yeah, talk yourself up. It's kind of the same thing as with the job interview. It's like, I'm good, I'm fly, you know I'm fly, you know you want to give me this money. You know, be confident in yourself and know that you do deserve this. For your follow-on service project, think about your community and local schools. Think about how you heard about Gilman and how you could tell others about it. I imagine most of you probably heard about Gilman from me, from that email that I sent out earlier today and also last week. And of course, if you don't apply, you'll never get it. We have very high historical numbers of our students getting this scholarship, and it doesn't take anything but your time. And if you win, it's up to $5,000. And for those of you who are going on a summer program, $5,000 could be your entire program cost. Like, this can cover quite a bit of your study abroad experience. So yeah, you'll never get it if you don't apply for it. These are some of my tips for scholarship stuff. And these are sort of general tips in addition to some specific tips for Gilman. Start early and have multiple drafts. I know 3 essays is a lot. One is 7,000 characters. The other 2 are 3,000 characters. So it's about 1 3-page essay and 2 1.5-page essays. So it's not a small amount of writing, but it's also not huge. So get started and have a couple different drafts of your essays. Read your essays out loud to yourself and also read it out loud to other people, and have somebody else read it out loud to you. There's something very different about reading silently and hearing it spoken that allows you to really catch a lot of grammatical issues or sentence structure that doesn't make sense. There's a different way that your brain is processing it between it being auditory and it being in your head. So have somebody read it out loud to you and read it out loud to somebody else. Proofread and edit. This should go without saying. Make sure it doesn't have any grammatical mistakes. Make sure that it doesn't have any spelling errors. Make sure that everything is, you know, capitalized and punctualized and all the various I's. One thing that I see an insanely high amount of times in scholarship review is I see study aboard instead of study abroad. Make sure you're using the right words there. Disclose relevant details about your identity. Like I said, if you identify as an underrepresented student in study abroad, let us know. Otherwise, we do not know. Be creative in creating your follow-up service project. Get original with that. Be creative in how you plan to engage with your host culture. Take your drafts to the University Writing Commons. I cannot say this enough. I myself have my bachelor's is in English. I very briefly worked for the Writing Commons when I was an undergrad. It's a very, very good organization. It's basically a bunch of English undergrad and graduate students who are especially trained on the editing process. So you can make an appointment with them, send them your drafts, and then go in and meet with them, and they will give you feedback on your drafts on how to improve them. And when you're making your appointment, if you specifically say, I'm talking about, I want to have somebody read over my scholarship applications, then they will assign you with a graduate student. So do make sure you go to the Writing Commons. I can tell a huge difference between students who go to the Writing Commons and students who do not. If you do not go to the Writing Commons at least one time with each draft, I don't know what you're doing with yourself, but it's not the right thing. Go to the Writing Commons. Then the other thing is, do send me your second to last draft. So once you feel like it's 98%, then send it to me for a review. I will review it, and there are a couple other people in CIE who can go ahead and take a look, who are trained on this kind of stuff. The reason that I say your second to last draft and to send everything else to the Writing Commons is because as much as I would love to read 5, 6, 7, 8, 12 drafts of all of your essays, again, kind of as I alluded to earlier, that in itself would be a full-time job. I simply don't, there are 15 people in this room right now. You each have 3 essays, that's 45 essays. That would take me a full day to get through. In order to edit in the way that it needs to be edited. And I'm sorry, I simply can't devote that kind of time to it. I have my own students that I have to work with. But I can commit to reading each draft one time when it's almost done. So I'll read it and I'll send it to one of the other people that we have in our office who does scholarship review. I'm sorry, I'm real sorry, guys. I have something in my throat today. Make sure, just put as many eyeballs on this piece of writing as you can. Have your mom read it, have your best friend read it, have your dog read it. That last one probably won't be very helpful, but you do whatever you want. But just make sure that you do spend time not only writing it, but also making sure that it's edited and that it's polished, because we do notice that stuff, trust me. And this is me. So I am, again, EA advisor and scholarship coordinator. There's my email address. I will put it into the chat in just a second in case you do want to email me those drafts. And that is about all I've got. I was actually expecting that to take the full hour, so we actually have a little bit of time left. So now is question and answer time. So let me stop sharing my screen. Actually, I didn't realize that I was still sharing my screen. Okay, so let me address the questions in the chat first, and then I can address any of the questions that you guys have. Heidi said, what is the deadline for studying abroad this summer? Depends on the program. If it's a faculty-led program, it's March 1st. If it's a non-faculty-led program, it's March 15th. If you don't know if your program is a fac-led or a non-fac-led, get in touch with your education abroad advisor. Is there a minimum credit requirement? Hope, no. As long as you're taking 1 credit, you're good to go. And I know that because we have 1 credit programs that I verified are eligible for this scholarship. Daniela, there are a total of 3 essays that you have to write. Yes, there are. One is 7,000 characters and the other 2 are 3,000 characters. That's, again, 7,000 is about 3 pages, 3,000 is about 1.5 pages. Make sure that you are using the character count in whatever word processor that you use, whether it's Microsoft Word or whatever. Make sure that you are checking the characters, get it as close to the maximum as possible without going over. And they do have software that checks that stuff when you submit the essay. Brittany asked, is there a minimum GPA? There's a 2.5 GPA in order to study abroad. The Gilman scholarship itself does not have an official minimum GPA. If it's below a 2.5, it's probably not going to happen for you. I'll say that much. So at this stage, we got a bunch of time to answer any questions. So if you feel as though you've gotten the information that you came here for, please feel free to go back and enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Go start working on essays. Otherwise, if you have any questions, please do feel free to either unmute yourself or go ahead and stick them in the chat. Heidi, I wasn't able to hear the answer. Did you mention when the deadline for studying abroad is this summer? It depends on the type of program that you're going on, Heidi. Going to be March 1st or March 15th. Dayton, I'm sorry, I don't know why I keep calling you Dayton. I'm sorry, David. Aren't the 7,000, 3,000, 3,000, it's actually not words, it's characters. So it's not a word maximum, it's a character maximum. There is no minimum. I encourage you to be as close as humanly possible to the maximum without going over. So for example, if it was anything for the first essay, for example, being 7,000 words, I want it to be realistically at least 6,950 words. I want it as close to the max as possible. But yes, that's a great question. Great point there. It is not words, it is characters. 3,000 words is a lot of words. That's several pages worth of writing. 3,000 characters. Other questions?
I have one.
Yes.
So if it's for the academic year, do we have to apply for both fall and spring, or do we just apply for one?
You pretty much just apply until you get it. So you can apply for the fall semester. If you get it, then that's it. You can only be awarded the scholarship once. If you apply for the fall semester and you don't receive it, then you can apply again for the spring semester. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Other questions?
Okay, I have a question. So I just want to clarify. So if I say applied for the fall, didn't get it, but then was like, oh, I really like where I'm at. Maybe I want to take like another course for over the winter and I wanted to just apply for it. And I just like thought ahead like to do that. Do you think I could like would they have that for over like the winter
They-
at the university where I was going, you know what I mean?
Well, I can't speak to whether or not the university that you're going is going to have winter classes. Not every university has winter classes.
They do, yeah.
Okay, then yes, as long as you had clearance from the university to take winter classes, as long as you had your EA advisor's approval, excuse me, then yes, you would be able to apply for the winter as long as you didn't receive it for the fall. If you
Okay.
applied for the fall and you received it, then it's one and done. If you
Right.
applied for the fall and you didn't receive it, then you could apply for future terms. But it is very much a one and done thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure thing. Other questions?